Good day and welcome back to my channel. So, as you could tell from the opening, we are going to talk nostalgia. um, so the really weird '70s music and the really weird '70s subjects. Well, that's where we're going now. Um, way back in the before times, this was one of the first TV shows that I really actively got into. Was really fascinated by. I mean, I grew up with Star Trek, right? I grew up Star Trek during the first run, and then there was the animated series, blah 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 blah. Um, but that and this here were really the only sci-fi that I could absorb as a kid, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. Looking back on the shows now, they leave a bit to be desired, but there's still a lot of really good stuff in there. So, um, interestingly, I had the first edition of this kit, and I'm going to segue for just a moment because I can. And this, it's in a box because it's already had like a ton of damage. This is the oldest kit that I still own. The oldest, I mean, of all of the model kits that I have that I've assembled, this is the one I put this thing back together in 76 or 77. And I knew nothing about building models. And to be perfectly honest, they were more toys than anything else because you couldn't get this stuff then, right? You couldn't get Eagles or things like that. And that was one of the reasons I really got into building models was I liked toys that were more accurate, and I like to play with them. So yeah, I've had several of these kits. This is the only one that has survived intact. Mostly, there's still some repair to do there, but this is the very first kit, or not the very first kit, but this is the oldest of the kits I have that are still in existence and in my presence. And it's just a thing, it's really cool. There will be a time, I know that there's a new release of a more accurate version of this, and we will get to that at some point in my life, and we'll come back to this one. But for now, this kit. This kit is the first kit, or excuse me, the first release of this kit is the first kit that I never finished. I did get together pretty much every kit I've ever done. In some way, shape, or form, this one beat me. I had no idea how to deal with the vinyl, and I had no skills, and I was young, 10, 12, something like that. And it was just beyond my skill set. And it's one of those things that I never came back to. But I participate in a couple of model group clubs, and one of them has sort of a nostalgic group build going, or just started this year, called the First Fokker. So the first Fokker you've ever done. As you can tell, a lot of the guys are like World War I airplane guys. So a lot of the Fokker play on words, but this is the first Fokker that I never got to finish. And now that I have a couple more years on me and some more experience both with model building and dealing with some of the creative stuff in here, and also with dioramas, having done gaming miniatures, I'd like to see what I could do with this. So I'm going to give this one a try. So I've chosen this one as my entry into that. But first off, what's in this box? So we're going to actually do a look at what's in this box. I know a couple other people have done so, but as I do, I go into it. Now, interesting thing, we still have the original Fun Dimensions logo on here, and this was re-released by Round 2 in 2014. And there have been a lot of, well, not a lot, but noticeable upgrades to this kit from the original. So let's take a quick look around the box and then we'll get into it. So nice picture of the Moonbase Alpha, and it has a nice base to it. It also does come with the display of main mission. I think that's like 1/72 scale ish. We'll look it up and we'll figure it out. But it's a bit bigger. The original kit had a spot on the display where that would go. This one doesn't, which is actually a nice update. The box itself has got some really nice pictures, right? You've got a nice picture of it done up, and then some pictures of, main mission and Moonbase Alpha. So, on the other side, same pictures. On the back, this looks like this is the model. This is the scene that you'll see when you actually watch the show. This is pretty much the angle you get of Moonbase Alpha for many of the shots. And then you also see a nice layout of the plan view of it. So let's go ahead and crack in here, and I will be back in a moment after I've opened this up. All right, so now I have this cracked open, so let's go ahead and take a look in the box. So, very first things that greet us are these vac form plates. There's 2 of them, and the other 2 are down on the bottom. So, you can tell these are vac form. These are a little bit more solid than the original pieces, as I recall, but they're still vac form. They have these pieces here that will go underneath where the Moonbase pieces sit, and that gives you, sort of keeps it flat. But these are flimsy, as vac form is, and you can see sort of now. First of all, these are like really, really glossy, but you can kind of see where the pieces are going to go, and we'll look at that in a minute. Now, the interesting thing about these is these are designed so that you can't put them together wrong. You have, these are cut in a certain way. Like you can see, this is at an angle, this isn't. So obviously these 2 don't go together. So it's really kind of nice. It lays out correctly for you. We'll pull the rest of these parts out here, and then we'll pull out these pieces, and then the instructions and so forth. So let's set that up there. And then, so here's the other 2, and you can see this has the same angle as the other one that we showed you, but you can see where the parts go and where the travel tubes go and so forth. So now these are, as vacuum form is, they're kind of soft. So there's going to be some work to do here, and we'll get into that in a bit. We'll look at the instruction kit or the instruction book and so forth in a minute. So, other material. So we get, actually my normal stuff is to actually go through the instructions. So let's do this first. So this is not a difficult kit to put together. So if you hold on a second, I'm going to zoom in just a bit. Make this a little bit easier for me. Sorry about that. So this is you start off with main mission. Nice thing is it tells you the paint jobs, right? So, the basically the way these uniforms are, they're all like this off-white, and then you have one sleeve as a certain color. Like Commander would get black, medical white. I mean, you guys can read. The Commander also had this black stripe going down his other side where the other ones did not. This also gives you decal placement for what goes into main mission. So where your transfers are supposed to go, you get transfers for the landing pads. These are really cool. We'll talk about those in a minute. That's a nice update. You have the wall for a computer, and you have nice transfers for the computer as well. You also have the desks, and they have their tops. Interesting thing here, this shows the spiral staircase that goes along the one side of main mission. Interestingly, main mission didn't have a spiral staircase. It was a square staircase. It would go up, then turn. So if you're into accuracy, so forth, there you go. So here is, then you get into building main mission. They have the 1970s plastic chairs, which is what they used. Interestingly, for main mission, so you have all 4 walls, right? So you build this up, you have all 4 walls, and you actually view in through these upper windows. In Moonbase Alpha, so let's cycle back just a little bit. Season 1, this was main mission. Season 2, they changed it. So season 1 and season 2 of Space 1999, very, very different. There's a billion conversations about differences between season 1, season 2, yada, yada, yada. We're talking about the model here. Main mission was different. Moonbase Alpha, they didn't change the main model. They didn't change the layout, but they did change main mission. So the set that they used for the command center was different. This is for season 1. And interestingly, theoretically, main mission was at this building right here in the center. And you can kind of see that building is just sort of squared off. If you look at all of this, nowhere in here are these really cool windows. And also interestingly is when you see scenes, you will see scenes occasionally where they will look out these observation windows, and it almost looks like the ground is at the same level. So it being on that elevated spot, doesn't fit. Now, here's the thing. It's a 1970s TV show. Continuity did not exist. The continuity check, it's like Star Trek. They made stuff up every week, and they were in a hurry to do so. So people have broken their brain trying to make things match. The internals of the Eagles, I mean, they might as well be a TARDIS because it's bigger on the inside, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's all I'm going to say about accuracy. I'm only going to talk about how things look. So there we go. Anyway, these windows are how you actually see into this kit because it has all 4 sides, which is kind of interesting. It sort of begs the question, doesn't beg the question, but it sort of implies, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to display it? How are you going to show it? Because this is the wall for the main view screen. This is the wall that goes into the commander's desk. This is the wall for the second level and computer. And then this is the wall that has the windows that go outside. So pretty much if you're going to lose a wall, it'd be this one. But that's main mission. That'll be an interesting one to do. And it does have people. This one, and this also gives you now move into how to put the base together. So it gives you the nice instructions, cut the flange off, and then banana clip those things together. Now this is an interesting bit of detail, right? It says put glue in and then put some sort of powder. Right, so put some sort of now this says use a dry powder, but some sort of a surfacing. So as a miniatures worker, right? So doing miniatures building, I'd probably end up using miniature sand or the really, really fine snow, because that material is close to what I do. But you also don't want to let it just build up on a bead on here. So we'll get into doing that as we get to it. But again, it's a skill I have now. I didn't have in 1977. I also have the tools, so that helps. Then this gives you the layout of the buildings. So you get the inner buildings, right? And how do you go? Now you saw how the plan form was, or the base pieces were, right? And you can see where these buildings go. Then you start getting your other layers. And literally this is putting a jigsaw puzzle together. And all you're doing is you're taking your piece and the building piece that fits in that particular area, you put it in, you glue it. Yay. That'll be very, very difficult. The trick with this is going to be the detailing. Now here's where we get into some interesting pieces. Your landing base, so your Eagle landing pads, have this little docking arm housing. And this was not on the original kit. So the original model kit had a lot of inaccuracies and inconsistencies. So they have updated it with this release, which is really cool, Round2. Thank you. Now they're calling this out. They're saying, put this on, put the decal number 1 on, put the decal number 1 on before you glue this in place, because the transfer is the full cross, then this will sit over part of it. And you'll see that in a moment. And then you have those go on, and then you have all these little bars. And you'll see them here. These pieces here we'll look at in a minute. These are the travel tubes. So these are these guys right here, right? Now in the original kit, those were formed in the vac form plastic, in the vac form base. These are not. These are actual pieces that you glue on. But they just give you big long pieces, so you're supposed to measure and cut. So this gives you how long each one is and then where they all go. I have heard that these measurements are not accurate or not exactly accurate. So, and then it also depends on where you set these. If they wiggle a little bit, if they're off by a couple mil, which at this scale will matter. So recommendation, my plan is to put the buildings down, put the landing base down, and then hold the pieces over and actually measure them exactly to the spot. The ones that I will do last will be these that had the terminals, because those can be any length. I can let these terminal pieces be sort of off a little bit if I need to make sure that these are in the correct length. Okay, so that's something that I know I need to pay attention to. But that's actually a really cool thing. Now, the other bit of accurizing that was done, the original kit only had 3 landing bases. The original kit also had 6 eagles that came with it, but they were too big. They were like the entire length of the landing base. This kit has updated them. You can see here, they're not the entire length of that circle, and that's a much more in scale eagle. So we will find in here, I believe we're going to find that there are 2 sets of those, and we'll get to that in a minute. But here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have all 5 landing pads. In the scenes of Moonbase Alpha, you can only ever see 2 or 3, obviously. There's a couple of scenes where the angle you actually can see all 5. And this is actually a much more accurate layout. So again, really cool thing about round 2. This will be fun. Well, this will be something to do anyway. So let's look at transfer sheets. And these, excuse me again, are way cool. So these are for the landing pads, and the detail on it is really nice. So yes, I could paint it and I could dry brush and so forth, but with the transfers here, why bother? Put those down, a little bit of microsalt, and you are good to go. And then these are computer bay, the wall that has computer on it, and then your main mission screen, and then computer underneath the main mission. Then these are the tables for the desks. If you the way the main mission desks were, they were very Spartan, but they were kind of made to look very futuristic, at least as far as futuristic can look in 1970. One of the things that I do find difficult about watching the show again is the very, very 1975 outfits and the plastic everything. It's a little painful, but still, nostalgia is a powerful tool. So now let's take a look at the pieces. I know this is probably going to be a somewhat longer video than most, but where did that go? It's going to be one of those, unboxings, but I tend to be fairly thorough, and I'm going to. So here we go. Let's take a look at the parts. This one is the new. These are all white, so these are going to be difficult to kind of see. But these are, darn it, these are the new bases, landing bays. So the interesting thing is these are all flat. These aren't raised or lowered. And the detail on those, if I can get this to focus nicely, there we go, is actually fairly crisp. The other interesting thing is these flare out just a little, which the other ones did not do. And these are the eagles that are in scale to those. So those are my 6 eagles that are in scale to my 5 landing bays. And the details, but they're there, right? They are like 8 mil long. So, and then these are terminals for your travel tubes. And then these are the docking arms, and those go on here. Like I said, you put transfer on first, then those go down. Here are a couple walls for main mission, and these are the people. And I think they are looking a little bit smaller than 1/72nd scale. So let's give it a quick. Here they're what, 1 I can actually see here. There we go. So they're 17 mil tall. So I'll do the math. I'll do the math and I'll put it up on a caption right underneath as far as what the scale actually is. That actually might end up being like 196 or 1/100th, blah, 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 whatever. So these are the walls. The issue with the walls, so we do have ejector pin marks here. I have some here and here. Now, interestingly, I mean, you'll have to deal with those. A thought here, and I saw somebody else mention this on another video, that if you really wanted to light this thing, the cool thing about Alpha is all of these panels would glow. So they had backlit on these. So these would look like those old fluorescent glow lights, and they could up and down the intensity of those lights, which would be really cool to do at these, except for those guys, the ejector pin marks, which means these pieces are going to have to be fiddled with. If I fill it, then I can't light it. So we will set that aside for future me to figure out. Now, these are the travel tubes. Now, if you'll notice-ish, they are square. And travel tubes were square, if I recall correctly, on the show. And they just give you a bunch that you cut to length. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. They do have ejector pin marks right here. So pay attention to top and bottom. So the smart thing to do would put the parts that have the pieces that have the ejector pin marks on the bottom. Not very difficult. Our next bag here has more main mission parts and looks like some pieces of the base. So let's go to main mission picture. So this is main mission base. And now we're starting to see flash. Now this kit was done updated in 2014. It is now 2021. So that's what, 8 years. 2014, round 2, made in China. So it's lasted, right? It's gotten us this far, but we are going to see some flash, and not really shocked. So our stairs, it's actually kind of nice. It's actually hard to mess that one up. So this is the interesting piece about this kit. So they do include this sprue that has the old landing bays and the old Eagles. Now you can see the difference between these two guys, right? So the landing bays, or the landing pads, are pretty different, and these here are more accurate. And you can see the size difference of the Eagles, and that's the Eagles on the landing pad there versus Eagles on the landing pad there. Definite difference. But they do include this, which is kind of neat. And I presume they include it because it had those two pieces. And it was easier to just take these same molds, re-inject, than it would be to make these. Now, these are crisp. Let me see if I can get this focused. There we go. These are fairly crisp. And this is where your details, this is where it's going to matter, right? So you're going to paint these, and the shading and shadowing is what's going to be critical to making Moonbase look right. It's really, really, all of this little detail is what makes it, like right now, it's very toy-like. So your painting is going to be critical to making this work. These are the other pieces. I think these are some indoor pieces. Again, there's more flash, but I think we're going to be expecting that going forward. Now, something else I understand is, see these holes here? These holes are where the old travel tubes used to be. So when these would sit down on the old base, the travel tubes would go there. So these are going to be open holes when you put them on the base. They're going to need to be filled. Something to pay attention to. I've seen people who've put this, or I've seen some folks, I have seen some examples of this base bin put together, and I believe we even see it on this kit. I've seen it in some of the pictures for this where you still see those holes. So this is while it's the simplicity of putting together a jigsaw puzzle, the challenge is going to be finishing it, right? So if this was a glue and play toy, easy peasy, it's ready to go. But if you want to make this thing look nice, it's going to take a little bit of work. And that's actually why why I want to do this one now, because I would like to try and leverage the skill set that I have learned to get from watching the various model makers, like and various terrain builders, and see what I can do here. So these are mostly main mission pieces. There's this piece is where that one upper square goes in the center of Moonbase. This is the rack for computer, and I believe computer part sits right here. Interestingly, yeah, so they're folded, right? They fold over now. Again, interestingly, if I recall correctly, these panels are actually flat. In main mission, they're flat and angled. So you have one whole big bank, and then there's just a little step, and then the whole big bank, and then another step. So they kind of come out at a little bit of an angle, then step back like that. I don't believe they're folded like that. So I'm going to look. I could be wrong. By the time I post this, I should have had a chance to look, and then I will tell you whether I was right or not, based on what I saw. And then there's that, and there's more ejector pin marks, etc. This here, again, more main mission parts. This is, looks like Koenig's desk and chairs, right? So these are the nice 1970s plastic chairs that we now stick outside in our lawn. And these are the pieces for the spiral staircase going up, which would be easy enough to redo. And this is I believe the handrail that's up on that upper deck. So those can be fixed if you want to spend the time. These are the other desks. There's some nice detail there. And those tables are actually fairly Spartan. Again, some nice detail here with, unfortunately, ejector pin marks. And then the windows. Now, there is no glass to go in these windows. It just is, it's just open. If you want to do that, you're going to need to put styrene. And then there's just one piece here. So, there we go. That is my inbox look at Moonbase Alpha. And a little bit of a walk down nostalgia lane for me anyway. You can see here when they put this together where that seam is, and you can probably see some of these others, right? So putting that together and making the seam go away and then redoing all this is going to be something of a challenge, but it's also something that I'm excited to try. So this is going to be a little bit of a fun little experiment with a fairly cheap toy-like model. I am glad that these were updated. I am glad that these were accurized. And you know what? I can feel a difference between this plastic here and these old ones. So it's interesting. I think they really only added some extra pieces, but pretty much went with very similar. I don't know the ins and outs. I know these feel different than those. But they're sharp. And this is, I think where it matters is I was afraid that these were going to be soft, like really soft. And they're not. So that is going to help make this whole build work. The fact that these pieces are fairly crisp, because that's where it's going to be, right? You're going to need to shade it in a way that those pieces look sharp, because that's really what makes it. This whole look is contrast, right? So this is really the look we're going for, right? This look is all about the contrast, lights on darks and shading. So this here is where we're going. Anyway, that's this kit. I hope for those of you who are interested and nostalgic like I am and curious about this kit, thinking about whether or not you want to put that on your Christmas list, this is what's in the box, in my opinion of it. And so at some point I will do the build series for this, and you'll see that coming, probably posted about the same time as this. And until next time, Thank you very much for watching, and happy modeling.